أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Tonight's or this afternoon's gathering is for Imam Hasan alayhi salam. Some ask, don't we remember Imam Hasan alayhi salam on the 28th of Safar along with the wafat of Rasulullah? We say that there are two dates, at least as far as I know. One is the 7th of Safar, one is the 28th. Some cultures, the 7th is the main day for some, 7th. And if you don't have it for the 7th, then they will not remember on the 28th. Even though we're going to have programs for Imam Hasan alayhi salam, I thought that there's no problem to have two majalis for Imam Hasan alayhi salam. When it comes to the life of Imam Hasan alayhi salam, you see that one of the best ways to understand him is in the year of 40th, right when his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, becomes shaheed, and he addresses the people. It is not his first sermon in front of everyone, because there are times in history where it says Imam Ali alayhi salam wanted Imam Hasan to either lead Friday prayers, for example, sometimes, or in other occurrences he gave speeches, or other activities that he had even as a child. For example, they say that after his grandfather passed away, he would go and try to collect followers for his father, Imam Ali alayhi salam. He would go and try to get collectors and collect people who would help Imam Ali, just how Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam would go and try to get loyal people to help Imam Ali alayhi salam out. Or sometimes what he would do, some of his activities as a child, that he would go and refute those who are on the pulpit when they don't deserve to be on the pulpit. Mentioning that they don't deserve it. This is the pulpit of my father, my grandfather, for example. Or you see, for example, other places where Imam Hasan alayhi salam was very active. And he showed his bravery, he showed his strength. But you see here that right after his father passes away, becomes shaheed, Imam Hasan alayhi salam comes and gives a speech. And he says, mentions that we are the party of Allah. We are the triumphant. We are the itrat of Prophet of Allah, who are the closest to him than any other and anyone else. We are the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet, who are infallible, immaculate, from all sins and anything else that is an obvious, interpretation of sin. We are the one of the two which the Prophet left for his nation in his place and said, I am the two precious things. I have left for you two precious things, the book of Allah and my itrat, my family. So here we understand that the first thing that Imam Hasan alayhi salam mentions, one is about the status of Ahlul Bayt, and to remind them of the haqq of imamat that the imams have. Because at that time, do you think that all the followers of Imam Ali alayhi salam were Shia? Were they all Shia? No. Actually, probably the majority of the followers of Imam Ali alayhi salam were probably Sunni, in this definition that they didn't believe in imamat. Not everybody chose Imam Ali alayhi salam as the imam how they should have and had that ma'rifat and understanding. Many people just elected him. He thought he was the best person to rule at that time. They followed. But there's a big difference, right? What difference comes to your mind when Imam Ali is the imam appointed by Allah, or that imam you think is the best to rule? Big difference. Because one is appointed by God, has knowledge by God. One is sinless. Therefore, every command he gives is from God. You know that this is from God and he's not making a mistake. right? Compared to one that you elect and you think maybe he's right, maybe he's not. That's why, during the time of the arbitration, for example, when Imam Ali alayhi salam was with speaking to Muawiyah in this, in this extent, it took people months to decide what is right. Took them months to decide what to do, because they haven't chosen. This is in one dalil and proof that the followers in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam at that time were not necessarily Shia as we are, the 12 Imamis. Yes, there were Shia amongst them. I wonder if this is a clue, about what happens with Imam Hasan alayhi salam. Very important. So don't think that this army right now, that is maybe 30, 40,000 that are going to do bay'ah to Imam Hasan alayhi salam, that they're going to do bay'ah again because he is the Imam of the time. They're all willing to give their lives for him. No, it is not like that. Then he mentions that we are indeed the ones whom the Prophet called as one of the two. We are next to the Quran, and the Prophet taught us the knowledge of Tanzil and the Ta'wil of the Quran. We have knowledge of the book. In regard to the Quran, we talk with certainty. We do not guess the Ta'wil. We do not guess the inner meanings of the Quran. So obey us. This is the first speech of Imam Hasan after his martyrdom of his father. Our obedience has become incumbent upon you by Allah. So again, this is much different than following Imam Ali or Imam Hasan just because he is the best person at the time. That it is wajib. Your salvation relies on us approving of you, because every group will be resurrected with their Imam. Telling them this. Allah has made our obedience cognate with His obedience and His Prophet's obedience. And Allah says, O you who believe, obey Allah, obey the Messenger, and those charged with authority among you, the ulil amr. So Imam Ali Hasan is doing tafsir of the verse of ulil amr. Who are they? We are the ulil amr. Again, reteaching the people that we should follow us because we're imams. And this is much different, we said, than following us because we are the leaders. They're the best to be followed. Then he mentions, and this is very interesting, that remember last week we talked about Imam Zayn al-Abidin's sermon in front of Yazid. And we said that Imam Zayn al-Abidin, how bravely defended Amir al-Mu'mineen in the capital, in the main place where Imam Ali was being cursed. The hatred of Imam Ali stemmed from. And was giving the virtues of Imam Ali. So therefore, you see, one of the first things that Imam Hasan does here is the fadail of Imam Ali. They also say the last rajas, the last, that poetry you do before you fight of Imam Hussein on Karbala was also about Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So you see, the center of our beliefs and the center of our, to understand the prophetic way is Imam Ali alayhi salam. This is where we have the entire fight is over. And this is why we say the virtues of Imam Ali. Why? Because the guidance is there. Because to understand Imam Ali means you understand the true message of Rasulullah. So therefore, this is the center. Imam Hasan alayhi salam's first speech, he's going to talk about the fada'il of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Hussein is going to talk about the fada'il of Imam Ali alayhi salam, speak about him. Imam Zayn al-Abidin in front of Yazid is going to talk about the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And this is for us something very important because we said the narration that our salvation relies on Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali, and that we will enter heaven, and the tradition says, with the nur of Imam Ali alayhi salam. While Imam Ali enters with the light of Rasulullah, and Rasulullah enters with the light of Allah. But we will enter through the nafs and the soul of Rasulullah, which is Imam Ali alayhi salam. Tonight, he says, a man left this world whom the people before him did not precede him. This is one of those, he's telling the people, look who you lost. He's not comparing him to the other khulafa because Imam Ali does not deserve to be compared to the other khulafa. He is comparing him to the awwaleen, to whoever has been ever created on this earth. Obviously, besides Rasulullah. Everyone besides Rasulullah, he's incorporating in this and says, tonight a man left whom the people before him did not precede him. He was the best in terms of good deeds. Now it says in this, good deeds, and no one can approach his level of salvation. And nobody else can be like him who will come forward from now on. After him, whoever there is will be lower than Imam Ali alayhi salam. He will be the highest. This is who you lost. So again, Imam Hasan alayhi salam is very in a timely manner speaking about the virtues of his father. Surely he fought holy wars next to the Prophet, devoting himself in his cause. Anywhere the Prophet sent him with his flag and the angel Jibril moved on his right and the angel Mikael on his left, he did not return until Allah was triumphant at his hand. Then he continues, he says, he, Ali alayhi salam, left for the everlasting world on the same night that Isa alayhi salam ascended to the heavens. This Ali alayhi salam that tonight he has passed away, Isa alayhi salam descended to the heavens. And Yusha, the successor of Musa, passed away. Then he says, no gold, no silver remained from him, but 700 dirhams. Now question, some have calculated the income of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alaikum. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Some calculated as 40,000 dinars yearly income at the end of his life. Why? Because Imam Ali alayhi salam had built wells. From these wells, he had servants that would work, and they would free themselves after a while. They would work, and they would develop gardens, because now there's water, now you have sun, and there'd be vast farms, and they would be free too. And then he would go to the next well, to the next well. Some say that some of the wells of Imam Ali alayhi salam were built with such quality that today they say Bi'r Ali, that these wells still exist. So therefore, from all these gardens and all that he worked for at a very long time, he had maybe, some say, 40,000 dinars income. 40,000 dinars yearly. Today, like a dinar can be something like a sikkah in Iran, a gold coin. Just to roughly estimate, just to give you an idea, how much is that? Like $400 each one. So something like 40,000 times $400. Again, inflation, all that thing's going to change things. I'm just giving you an idea. It's something like, $16 million income of just, not worth, of just income coming in. And then Imam Hasan alayhi salam is saying he didn't leave anything but 700 silver coins. He didn't leave anything, meaning he gave it all away. He would give it away even before possibly being collected. He gave it to the poor. Says, tonight you lost someone like this, who gave whatever he had for the poor, for the masakeen, that deserved it. One time some say this story that Imam Ali alayhi salam would give from, meals to people before he would lecture. A lot of times we lecture first, then if you stick around and you listen good enough, then we'll give you something. But Imam Ali alayhi salam was generous. First he fed them. First he gave them food, then he would speak. Then it is said that he gave them meat, for example. Meat is something that is more difficult to come by, more expensive. Even today, if I give you, for example, just normal rice and bread, for example, that would be cheaper than giving you something that has meat. Then people had a very negative opinion about Imam Ali alayhi salam, unfortunately. They didn't deserve Imam Ali alayhi salam. We don't really deserve him. So then they would watch and say, why doesn't Ali ibn Abi Talib eat from this meat? Why does he eat from this? So they went and followed him. They said, maybe he has better food than this that he's giving us. So they went and followed him. They see secretly Imam Ali alayhi salam is eating something like bread or dry bread or something like that. That is how much mistrust they had of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Well, again, 40,000 dinars, gold coins, income, but yet himself he mentions, and I'm not talking about, again, I'm not talking about getting it from his income of being the Khalifa. I'm talking about personal money from his personal gardens, because he wouldn't use from the Baytul Mal. He wouldn't take from the Baytul Mal. He would distribute it until, as-safra and bayda, the gold, the yellow, called gold yellow, for example, and the silver would be white, ghurri, ghairi, go and trick somebody else after distributing it. So Imam Hasan alayhi salam is saying that he had just a little bit left, 700, which were left over from his givings to others. And he wanted to employ help from his household with it. Then Imam Hasan alayhi salam began to cry when his father, Imam Ali alayhi salam, had just been shaheed. This is the first lecture of Imam Hasan. We're remembering Imam Hasan, the 7th of Safar. And Imam Hasan alayhi salam continued, he cried, and the people cried. I am the son of the deliverer of the good news. I am the son of the warner. I am the son of the caller to Allah. I am the son of the clear light. I am from Ahlul Bayt, whom Allah made loving them incumbent upon everyone. Say, I do not ask for you any reward, but love of my near relatives. He uses the verse of mawadda, that every prophet had a wage, every prophet had something in ajr, but no prophet had an ajr, I apologize. La as'alukum alayhi ajr. No prophet had a wage, no prophet had anything, any type of recompense, but Rasulullah did, and that was mawadda, that was love of the family, of his family. And that is for our guidance. Then he continued, and then Imam Hasan alayhi salam mentioned that the good deed mentioned in this verse is the love of us. And therefore it was a very short sermon. When we talk about the life of Imam Hasan alayhi salam, we understand that this is a time where he is preparing now his soldiers for a continued war against Muawiyah. This is the year 40. And he sends someone like Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, who's his father's cousin. Abbas is the uncle. So Ibn Abbas, or Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, he sends one to be in charge of this army, 40,000 people. They do allegiance to Imam Hasan alayhi salam. Even the Khawarij, they give him a condition, for example, to fight Muawiyah. And he says, I'm not going to have any conditions for your bay'ah. You want to do bay'ah or not? But they see that the troops are mobilizing to fight Muawiyah, and therefore they also give bay'ah. He sends with 12,000 people about Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, or a bit large army. Their letters are sent, and letters go back to Muawiyah, that they are, because again, they're tired of fighting, and Imam Hasan alayhi salam mentions to them, which path do you want? They will say, we want to remain alive. We want to remain alive. So even the likes of Ubaydullah ibn Abbas here, who himself, Muawiyah had killed his own sons, sells out Imam Hasan alayhi salam for vast amount of money and goes on the other side. So therefore you see the Imam at this time realizing that here guidance of people is the most important thing. And if he's going to continue, one way we analyze this, if he's going to continue a war with Muawiyah, who's going to go and fight in battle? Those who were really Shia, those who really believed in imamat, those who were, at that time, they just fought with Muawiyah, they didn't fight with Imam Hasan, because they did not believe Imam Hasan was the Imam, they wouldn't battle. So therefore, the true Shia would be killed. Possibly Imam Hasan alayhi salam could have been captured with such an army, and therefore, because of his wisdom that he had, he decided to have this peace treaty. But this isn't really a peace treaty, maybe you could just call it a ceasefire with the likes of Muawiyah, just so there's no more fighting. Why? Because that most important aspect is guidance. That this war would not cause that guidance for the people, that the guidance would be in danger. And the Imams would not fight, have a battle where hidayat itself, guidance itself, would be in danger. Because the whole purpose they do everything is for guidance. So therefore, after this, he left and he went to Medina and he stayed there. And then when you read about the life of Imam Hasan alayhi salam in Medina, you see that it is a life of worshiping Allah. It is a life of teaching the people, and a life that we see of guiding the people and helping the poor. Sometimes you see Imam Hasan alayhi salam performing the wudu and he would shake, for example, or worshiping Allah, and his color would change and would say this is how a person should be when speaking to Allah, that he should shake, his skin should become yellow, for example. Or sometimes you see Imam Hasan alayhi salam, when it comes to his patience and akhlaq, which is the best thing that a person can have, that people come and, curse his father. They come from Sham and they don't understand, who Imam Ali alayhi salam is. And he is very oppositely, he's very kind to them, kind to him, and asks them, for example, do you want to have a place to stay? Do you have something to eat? And this person is thinking that I thought that, Hasan ibn Ali is the worst of creation. After his, his reaction, I see that he is the best of creation. Or you see the likes that sometimes he sees in the stories it mentions a person who's sharing a meal with a dog, a slave that is sharing a meal with a dog. And some of the Sunni, historians say this. And that he asks him, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And this slave says, I have haya, I had shame, that I would eat and this dog would watch me eating. So therefore, I wanted to share this meal with him. And even though you imagine someone who's a slave, doesn't have much food, is sharing his meal with a dog. Imam Hasan alayhi salam really likes this action and goes and has that person wait here and finds the owner of this servant, finds the owner of the land. He frees the slave and he gets that land and gives it to the slave to build his future life with. So therefore, because he liked this action, that a person had haya, had shame, from even a starving dog, from even a hungry dog, for example. But the tradition, because we're running out of time, that I'd like to share with you tonight, with the condition of a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Is the knowledge of Imam Hasan alayhi salam. In the tradition, it says that Imam Hasan alayhi salam was speaking about Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This saying that is very important for us. This saying that, everything that if we do without saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim will not reach its full result. This, saying that almost every single surah of the Quran starts with. He says this, فَقَالَ Allah. Who is Allah? And he defines Allah. This is from the knowledge of Imam. Allah huwa alladhi yata'allahu ilayhi inda al-hawa'ij wa shada'id. He says that God is the one, or Allah is the one to whom every creature turns to in devotion during times of need and hardship. This is Allah. If you want to define Allah, is who do you turn to? When everything is, you lost hope with all of creation. There's nobody else to help you. And we can understand it a little bit more theologically that God has planted this Allah that Imam Hasan alayhi salam is talking about is the Allah that is in our nature, that everyone who is born with already believes, but that we have to remove the barriers. Sometimes we establish barriers between us and Allah. Therefore, people are confused. They question His existence, for example, or they question God's, actions in this world. Why? Because of those barriers. But regardless, if those barriers are removed, Imam Hasan alayhi salam says, Allah is this being the one who عند الحوائج والشدائد, people turn in devotion to. كل مخلوق, he says, every created being turns to. Everyone believes in Allah. Everyone turns to Him. عند انقطاع الرجاء من كل من دونه, from whoever his hope is cut off from. When all creation, our hope is cut off from them, this is the Allah we turn into. This is the definition of Allah. وَتُقَطَّعُ الْأَسْبَابِ مِنْ جَمِيعِ مَنْ سَوَى, when all the means are severed. It says, you say in the name, تقول بسم الله أي أستعين على أموري كلها بالله. So when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this is the Allah that will help you, the Allah that is there when you have lost hope. The Allah is there when you're in suffering. And then it says, this is what we mean. This is what you say when we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الَّذِي لَا تُحِقُّ الْعِبَادَ إِلَّا لَهُ, the one to whom worship is rightfully due. إِذَا الْمُغِيث إِذَا أُسْتُغِيث وَالْمُجِيبِ إِذَا دُعِي. He is the rescuer when help is sought, and the responder when called upon. Therefore, we understand that to give a little bit of an analysis of this from my very limited knowledge, ma'rifat of Allah and understanding of Allah is something we understand from this is ingrained, it is fitri, it is inside everyone. Ma'rifat of Allah is one that we all start out with. But even though it might be very light, it might be like a candle, like a small little candle, but when removing the barriers, when worshiping God, when getting more knowledge, when becoming pure, a person then attains ma'rifatullah. A person then gets to know Allah. It is a relationship that we have with Him, and we get to know Him more and more. So therefore, some take this candle, and it's always a dim candle for them because they never worked on it. They never tried to discover God. It's always like a candle. So therefore, if a barrier comes, he might not really feel it or see it. But that person who works on himself and has taqwa and follows the commands of God, that light becomes like a shining sun. For some, it will become like a projector, a light, but then for some, it will become like a shining sun, something that they cannot even deny its existence. There's no reason to even prove the sun's existence because it's so bright. And that is the level that you see that the Imams then have. That's the level that the holy ones can have. And that's how Imam Hussein alayhi salam dua Arafah mentions, for example, Bika araftuk. Through yourself, I come to know you. Through yourself, not with any medium. Because for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Allah's existence has become like a sun. So we will feel Allah's presence more, according to this narration, in shada'id. When we need His help, He is the one who will answer us. But our goal is to reach that ma'rifah that will always be with us. We always see Allah as that sun with our hearts. That is, a tawheed in shuhud. That witnessing Allah with the hearts, because they come to Imam Ali alayhi salam, they mention, can you see Allah? And just paraphrasing, he says that you see Allah with the hearts. And the hearts see Allah. As long as somebody's heart is not destroyed, as long as you don't destroy yourself and you destroy your senses, your true hearing, your true seeing, which comes from the heart, your true understanding, as long as this is intact, naturally it will witness and see Allah. This will be one of the benefits for everyone, for those who, continue their Islam. And hopefully, we hope to practice Islam seriously to reach this level of ma'rifah, inshallah. But regardless, when, and this is for every kull makhluq, when they are in need of help, when there's nobody else, I truly believe that is when, and the tradition says, that is when everyone will call upon Allah. That is when they see that nobody else can help me but Allah. And therefore, God is in the broken heart. God is in that heart that has severed His hope from everyone else. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, we live in a time where our hope is amongst the people. Our hope is not with God. We need to change this around and lose hope in the people. Ask for help if you need to. Go see a doctor. Go see a professional. But who you're really seeking is that medium that Allah has created. You're looking at your salvation. You're looking at your health. Looking at those hawa'ij being answered only through Allah's, inshallah, benevolence and lots. We turn to Imam Hasan alayhi salam. We ask Allah, because of this great Imam that we have within the lights, Ya Aba Muhammad, we speak to Imam Hasan alayhi salam. Ya Hasan ibn Ali, ayyuha al-mujtaba, ya ibn Rasulillah. Ya hujjatallahi ala khalqih. Ya Sayyidina wa Maulana, we ask we beseech Imam Hasan alayhi salam, we ask, especially during this time, I congratulate those that came for the Tuesday dua for oppression, that they cared for their brothers and sisters in Gaza. We turn to Imam Hasan alayhi salam and sincerely ask Allah through Imam Hasan to, inshallah, remove affliction from the Mazlumeen and oppressed in Palestine and throughout the world, inshallah. Ya Hujjat Allahi ala khalqi, Ya Sayyidina wa Maulana, inna tawajjahna wa stashfa'na wa tawassalna bika ila Allah wa qaddamnaka bayna yaday hajatana. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ishfa' lana inda Allah. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ishfa' lana inda Allah. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ishfa' lana inda Allah. Finally, they said because Imam Hasan alayhi salam, in the way that Muawiyah wanted was not dealing, he was not behaving, or was not in this way submitting to the will of these tyrants. So they give money to Ja'ada, which was the wife, or some say Ju'da, bint Ash'ath, to come and poison Imam Hasan alayhi salam. We know that one of the most madlum people is those who are madlum and oppressed in their own homes. Because usually the home is a place of trust. The home for us is a place that we can speak to, as a place of sakina and tranquility. How madlum was Imam Hasan alayhi salam, that even at his house, even at the place of his house, he did not have any trust. He was poisoned by his own wife. Everything we talk about Imam Hasan alayhi salam is full of madlumiyah and oppression. Right now, as the poet says, when those are walking towards the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they should give one salam to Imam Hasan, the Imam who does not have a shrine tonight, the Imam that does not have any visitors tonight while everyone is walking towards his brother's grave, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, while Imam Hasan alayhi salam, on the night of his martyrdom, there's nobody there, barely anyone there. Imam Hasan alayhi salam, even his funeral, he was oppressed when they came to do tawaf around the grave of Rasulullah, and they prohibited this, and they shot, some say, arrows at the body of Imam Hasan alayhi salam. They shot multiple arrows at his holy body. But yet during this time, when the Panchtana ala Abba, when the five of the cloak, each one of them, as some of our scholars said, has a representative. This is the time period that we see the madlumiyat of Imam Hasan incorporated in his sons, Qasim and Abdullah, the two yatim orphans of Imam Hasan, who came to help their uncle Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the two that were so young that armor did not fit them, the two that came to the battlefield with sandals. At that time they asked, Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam asked Qasim ibn Hasan that, how do you see death? And he says, Ahla min al-asal. And in some of the maghatil, or some of the sources say, he brings the note from his father that his father, Imam Hasan alayhi salam, wanted Qasim to participate in this. So there we see these two madlum sons of Imam Hasan. And one of the few that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on the day of Karbala, there were two individuals who actually died while in the lap or on the chest of Imam Hussein. One, was Ali Asghar. One was the infant son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that when Harmala saw him, he shot him with the trident or three-headed arrow. The other was Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, the one that they saw finally Imam Hussein alayhi salam is all alone and they're striking him. He ran and they came to grab him, but he became the shield of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that this young boy became the shield of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He lifts his hand. When they come to strike Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he lifts his hand, his young hand, and they hit it in such a way that it is just dangling by its skin. At that time, Imam Hussein alayhi salam grabs Abdullah ibn Hasan, the remembrance of his son, his brother Imam Hasan alayhi salam, and I want you to imagine what Abdullah is feeling, that he's in the chest of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and that he's thinking that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is still alive maybe, that I might be becoming shaheed, but I'm happy that my uncle Hussein alayhi salam is still alive. During this time, Harmala again strikes and hits Abdullah ibn Hasan in the heart. And how difficult it is for Imam Hussein alayhi salam to talk to his nephew, and his nephew not to answer him anymore. Ala la'natullah ala al-zalimin. Matam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad.